presenters to present themselves and to take it from there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. My name's Filipe Tiago Stankovic. I am 29 years old. I'm the CEO of a small company in the north of Portugal, Lingua Mundi. And we're very big on process creation and quality. And that's what we want to talk a little bit about today.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Inês, and I work for Filipe at Linguimundi. I'm the quality manager there, and I'm also responsible for the language department as well. So I guess that's it. Maybe we can start then the presentation.
Yes.
I'll share my screen. Okay, let me know if you can see it well.
Everything from my side, everything seems fine.
Perfect.
So, for this presentation, given that the topic is quality at the source, which we will define shortly, we wanted to start with some abstract questions and defining concepts, right? Because quality is a concept, and although we all talk about it, we may be working under different definitions of what quality is. And I'm not just talking about translations. If you think about it, it's not easy to define quality in pizza, in clothes, in cars, in any service or product you may think of. We all may have a different idea of what a good pizza is, or what a good translation is. So we decided to try and make it as objective as possible, how to define quality. And this definition is what we came up with. Quality is a characteristic of a product or service that relates to its ability to meet and exceed the stated or implied needs of the customer, thereby provided customer satisfaction. So the two key words here are meeting or exceeding customer expectations, right? And we all know different customers can have different levels of expectations. Like with some customers, we have the possibility of they expect you to be creative, and they give you a lot of freedom to move away from the source text, for example. With other clients, they want a more literal approach. They want to maybe prioritize being precise and accurate over being creative and fluid or fluent. And with the that's why it's important to define customer expectations and listen to customers before we really go into trying to establish certain more concrete quality standards, right? So how do you achieve this quality? How do you reach how do you meet customer expectations or exceed them? So here are some ideas that we've had from our years of working with customers and trying to understand them better, and trying to meet and exceed their expectations. And this is what we came up with. So we asked them about their preferences and create this style guide. We do this in the beginning of a customer relationship. We like to have a call with the clients as soon as we start working with them. And this is something that as translators you can apply to, like even, so you become a face and not just a number or a name in a client system. You want to humanize yourself, which is also in a way good, some sort of good passive marketing, that you make yourself human and you allow your clients to put a face to your name. But also it serves a very practical purpose to have a meeting with the clients early on, which is to ask them a series of questions regarding their expectations. These can be fairly objective grammatical questions and punctuation preferences, but it can also be style preferences. And then use the information you gather and the feedback you collect to create a reference material, a document, a style guide that will help you be consistent across translations, or in our case as a company, that means that even if we do have to use a different translator, let's imagine for the same client due to health reasons or holidays or something like that, what will happen is they will follow the same style guide, which means some level of consistency across different translators will be achieved more than otherwise would have been. Something else that we found that's very useful when listening to the customer is creating a glossary of their terms, getting consistent, that this helps with consistency, with accuracy, and with customization, right? Because it allows you to have an interactive two-way conversation with a client about which terminology they want to be used. And this can, like we have clients that prefer more formal terminology, more informal terminology. We know that with Anglicisms, some clients prefer to use English words and keep them in English. Some clients want them translated and adapted to their own country's vocabulary. So this glossary is also an important tool in listening to the customer and establishing customer expectations. Now, this one's fairly objective, and it's my favorite. Define any objective grammatical and punctuation preferences, because here it's not so much about style. It is actually about, we have clients that want someone to use a specific type of dash or a specific type of apostrophe or quotation marks or those have to be established early on as well. And of course, collect and apply any feedback received. I think has to do with continuous learning and a continuous feedback loop. So even after the cooperation has started and you've done all of this groundwork, you want to always you want these things to be living documents. So you want to be updating. They're not written in stone. You want them to be updated. You want to update your style guide with potential new feedback that you collect from customers. Let's say that they send you through emails or additional calls that you have in the future. And you want to update your glossary and keep adding terms as these get confirmed by the client or as new terms get requested by clients. So that would be some things we can do to listen to the client. What is quality at the source now? So we've defined quality, or at least we've tried to define quality. What is quality at the source? So quality at the source is a term that originates in manufacturing. We did not come up with it. And it's this idea of getting things right the first time. So not relying so much in a final stage of inspection, or waiting until the last step to do a quality check, but it means that you actually infuse quality throughout each and every step of the process, and you try and get things right the first time, right? So this is a little bit tricky for our industry because we rely heavily on revision and proofreading and additional steps that are in essence a forum of and QAs in the end, quality assurance in the end of the translation process and the revision process done by project managers very often. And this means that we are traditionally relying heavily on inspection and on catching mistakes later on down the chain, as opposed to getting things right the first time and embedding quality in the product originally. We call this, can also be called error proofing. It's a term I particularly enjoy, which means how can you make the project almost like bulletproof? What tools can you use to make the project bulletproof so that you avoid any mistakes and you don't have to rely so much on your memory and your willpower and your hard work, which are all great things, but highly fallible. And human beings, we're not, if you get 100,000 word project, it's not naturally human to be consistent across those 100,000 words, right? So we need to use those tools that we have and technology to ensure that we get we get things right the first time, and we don't rely so much on human processes, which are fallible and more expensive, right? So for us, there's two things regarding total quality management, and that's defects, the difference between defects and mistake. A mistake is something human that is natural to happen. It only becomes a defect when it's passed on to the customer or the next step of the process. We need to prevent mistakes and ensure they do not turn into defects. We are in a service, right? We provide a service. Services are human. Humans are fallible, and that's okay. But we need to have processes and systems and technology in place that make sure that these natural human mistakes don't get felt by the customer and don't get experienced by the customer by applying prevention and applying a certain set of principles, which we would now like to discuss. So how does quality at the source apply in the translation industry? We talked a little bit about what does it mean to try and do quality at the source, embedding in the original stages of the translation process or of any process really, consistency, accuracy, fluency, grammatical correctness, all that stuff. We want to apply it as early on in the production chain as possible, and get things right the first time. What does that mean in practice for our industry? Well, one of the big benefits of using quality at the source, right, of getting terminology right and establishing what the terminology you want to use from the beginning, of having the client's stylistic preferences defined early on, the tone, the vocabulary, all that stuff, is that it avoids rework. So rework means having to have the client send back the document and us having to work on it again, or having to have a quality manager down the line, a project manager down the line, or somebody else in the production chain to send the work back to the translator to be redone. And this is highly expensive, it's inefficient, nobody likes it. Translators don't like to have to go back to their projects and have to redo things and rethink things. So it is something that is highly avoidable, but it is still not. It's still not. It's avoidable, but it's not. How can I put this? It's not a necessary part of our industry. Although we treat it a little bit as it is part of the production chain, and some feedback will always be natural. We won't always be able to prevent things at the source, but it is not a inevitable part of our job. And I really like this meme that a colleague of ours found. Get up, the client wants more changes. Please just let me go. And I find it very interesting because it can be a bit of a torturous process to the same projects. So we have a series of principles, and these principles, we have 4 principles of quality at the source. And the first one is ownership, which means how do you give people control of the work that they're doing, right? Because control equals responsibility. It equals, in this case, freedom for the translators to do the job the way they want to do it, to apply their knowledge, to apply their skills, to apply their localized capabilities to produce something. So you want to make sure the people, in order to achieve ownership, you want to make sure the people who do the work are in control of and can do the work. Because what happens very often is we put a lot of rail guards around translators, and that can limit their ability to have ownership over their work. One classic example of this is not letting them use their preferred tool of choice, right? For example, their CAT tool or their work environment, they're the most familiar with. Very often, clients and companies will impose a certain workflow or a certain CAT tool that they want to use, and that may not necessarily be a good thing. Involve front. So, for example, we have an internal team of linguists at Linguimundi, and they are highly involved. We have, for example, certain tools such as checklists, work instructions, what is expected, what exactly is expected from a good translation, how do you achieve a good translation, what steps you need to follow. And from simple things like apply spell check at the end of the translation and keep quality assurance to um, more abstract things like read the document or do some research before you start translating. And the people who came up with these checklists and these processes, in our case, were our in-house translators, because they're the ones that do the work. They're the ones that know what a good translation should look like. So we don't just have people in management sitting around and imagining how it would be. We actually have the people who are doing the work involved in establishing the rules for how the work should be done. And last, but I don't think not least, and I already alluded to this, I'm a strong defender of choosing a translator-focused CAT tool. So there's basically two types of computer-assisted technology tools in the market. Ones that are more project management focused. They prioritize streamlining the process for project managers and making life easier and more efficient for project managers. But they often tend to be more limited in terms of the linguistic and quality assurance tools you can apply to your work. So for that, for that reason, I recommend a translator-focused CAT tool, because at the end of the day, what we do sell is translation. So you want to prioritize quality translation, and you want to have the tools that really do put the interests of translators at heart. Immediate action. So one of the key tenets of total quality assurance is that we don't wait for problems to surface. We address them and we point them out immediately. If you see something, say something. So like if you, for example, if you're a translator and you notice something's wrong with the source text, or there's parts missing, or something's not clear, or some vocabulary being used by the client is inconsistent, or there may be even some mistakes in the source text, you want to point those out immediately to either your supervisor or the project manager you're working with. You want to address these immediately off the bat. You don't want to wait till the end of the project, for example, when you're delivering the document, to let them know, oh, by the way, this and this part, they weren't very clear. You want to communicate as soon as possible, and over communication is better than under communication. This is also a good principle to follow. And problems are addressed as soon as they appear, and do not wait for them to go further down the line, like I just said. And immediate contact of the client with queries. And we actually developed a system for queries, which you might find quite interesting. Ines, I don't know, do we have
Yes,
a
I'm
slide?
going to be talking about that.
Okay.
So, so next we're going to show you how all this works in practice. And one of the things we're going to show you is exactly the color coding system we use. And this is meant like to be used for translators to be able to communicate with the reviewers. So we use this system where the translator will leave a comment whenever they feel necessary, and we have 4 colors for these comments. Each of the colors has a meaning. So we have blue comments, which is when a translator is sure about the translation of a term and is going to, leave the reviewer with all the sources they found so that the reviewer doesn't have to do the research again. Green is basically to show options. So I've translated this way, but you may also like this and this option. Then you have warning, which is orange, and orange is when the translation the translator has some doubts. And then you have red, which is our most, I would say probably like severe color, which is when something has to stop and be sent to the client or anyone else in the chain. So this is the logic, and this is how it looks in practice. So we would have, the segments in our CAT tool with the comments from the translator to the reviewer, and then the reviewer has they go the you know, for like as they review, they would just be checking comments as well and see what needs to be addressed. So this is the color coding system. But we do have other processes to make sure we guarantee quality at the source. One of them is term bases, which are basically glossaries. I'm sure you're all familiar with them, and it's important that they are set correctly in your preferred CAT tool, that they have the correct settings, that they are well organized, so that they work efficiently and that you can do a proper QA with them. And from term bases, you have two other kinds of, terminology management features. The first one is non-translatables. So, for example, as Philippe was saying, sometimes the client may have some text they want to leave in the source language. It could be, I don't know, a brand or a product name or wherever they would like to leave in the source language and not be translated. And this could be added to your CAT tool as well, so that you don't miss it. And the other terminology related feature is forbidden terms. So sometimes a client may have some specific preferences on how they would like for you to translate the term, and they can also tell you that some like a specific term should not be translated in a specific way, and this can also be inserted in your CAT tool, so that you don't really basically the purpose of all this is to automate things, so that you don't have to remember like by heart what these clients' preferences are. So basically, you can take the style guide and try to automate certain aspects of it, so that the QA will help you realize if you missed anything in the client's specifications. So related to this is, of course, QA. The QA, you have the usual QA, but then you can also optimize your QA with something called regular expressions. These regular expressions are codes of string that will help you kind of enhance your QA and tailor it to the client's needs. So, for example, here we had a client. They specifically told us they need a non-breaking space between the number and the percentage sign. This is an English into Portuguese translation. And what we were noticing was that only with the style guide, without having anything else, this was consistently missed. So with this enhanced QA creating these rules, you can automate this as well, and the QA will tell you if you're missing this specification, for
Ines,
example.
I think
Yes,
you broke off.
can you hear me now?
Yes.
Great. Can you tell me what was the last thing you heard?
Enhanced QA allows you to, and then
Thank you. So yes, exactly. Allows you to make sure you automate these aspects, and that you don't have to know them by heart. So your tool will warn you if you are missing something. Then you have, in line of these auto translation rules, what this is basically is like you have very repetitive translations, sometimes very repetitive, ways to do things. So, for example, a client wants the article name and number to be written in a certain way every time. You can automate this as well and create a rule inside your CAT tool that will translate this part for yourself, and will translate it correctly every time according to the client's specifications. So again, you don't have to know this by heart, and it can be checked for you automatically in QA. Basically, all of this is the error proofing aspect Philippe was talking about, and making sure that you can't miss a mistake after implementing these resources. And this is this is like the area where we can do the most amount of things. You can really be creative with all of this, and you can really use it to your advantage. Apart from this, we also have the checklists Philippe mentioned. So in our system, you have a checklist to remind you of the steps you should take. And like basically because, as it says, to improve the workflow, you need to understand each step of it. And this is basically the steps you have to fulfill in order to achieve the quality.
Mm.
We have two different versions of this checklist. The one you're seeing is the one that's embedded in our TMS system, is the one that you have to kind of click in order for you to be able to deliver the project. And it's a more condensed version, so that you don't forget any of the basics. But then we also have a more an extended version, let's say, which is more detailed. And you can, if you aren't sure on how to do something, you can refer to this document and see exactly what can help you and what is expected from you. So this is the step by step. And then if you click on each of these steps you see here, you will be able to access a more detailed description of it. So you have the step. Then we also insert some, I don't know, some tips, some standards, or some, or why is this step important, so the reasons and the visuals. So this document is important for to make sure you don't miss anything on the like on the process, and that you know how to perform each step, and you know what is expected from you in each step of the process as well. And then Philippe.
Yeah, and to summarize, just a quick note also, notice that it's all very visual, right? And reliant on colors, reliant on making things visual and nice and obvious for the translators so they can pick up on. Visual management and visual control is also a big part of total quality management. Our key takeaways, so, understand what your customer expectations are, create processes that meet those customer expectations. Keep in mind these four principles when creating those processes, the ones we discussed: ownership, immediate action, prevention over inspection, and continuous improvement. And remember, these processes are never a complete version of themselves, and you can always be improved. Like, these are all living documents, these are all living things, all things we can keep making better, iteration after iteration. Inês, I don't know, do we have time for that story of that one client that we have where this whole thing process
Actually,
worked really
I
well?
may just step in. Actually, we kind of ran off time, but we have the questions. Maybe Ines, you see the
Mhm.
questions. Maybe you can just reply to those
Yeah.
questions quickly
Let me see.
in chat.
Oh, in the chat. Okay. So first question is, are we talking about quality in terms of speed of response and price, or the quality of the end product, meaning the translation? In my experience, the customer only understands the source language but not the target language.
So we are talking about the second one, the end quality of the service. So how they perceive the service. And very often it will depend. For example, into English, for example, is very common that the clients have their own input and their own preferences because they may be bilingual. And even if they're not, they may have preferences such as, do you like formal or informal language? Do you want, what age group are you trying to target? What area of specialization are you trying to address? Those kinds of things.
Okay, thank you. And quickly, second
Yeah,
question.
quick second is this color coding system works only when a translator is working with a reviewer. Can we translators use this when we notice inconsistency with the source text and want to communicate issues to the project manager? Maybe I can address this one. So usually in what we do is we use this only when there is a translator and a reviewer, even though the translator, when there's a reviewer, does make comments about this source text as well. When there's no reviewer and it's a translation only job, usually these inconsistencies are passed on to the project manager in an email, because usually the project managers will not, you know, access and check all the comments in the project. But it would be a good approach, I think. And I think with all of this, they're all very, manageable, and it's what works best for you. So be creative with all these resources and, tailor them to what suits you. I think that would be the best. Yeah. I don't know,
Okay,
Philip, if you.
thank you. I
Agreed.
think we are already taking the time of the main conference. So with this, I thank very much both speakers, Ines and Filipe, and of course everyone watching, everyone who took the time for this morning session. And with this, I invite you to continue watching the main session. Thank you again, and have a nice day.
Thank you
Thank you,
very much.
everyone. Mate, do you need us to stay? Sorry, you're on mute. You're on mute, Mate. Sorry, I can't hear you.
Yeah, no, I said it's okay. I have to stay a bit longer here for the administrative reasons, but thank you again. And yeah, we had to kind of wrap it up.
Yeah. Sorry, I took a little bit longer than I thought I would have in my part. I apologize to both you and Inês.
It's okay. Okay.